Hey everybody, Milo here with Henry. We're out here at Superstition Mountain again. We've got a really good lesson for you guys today on how our trail foot works in the golf swing.
Yeah, so we talked about this before we came on camera here.
Yeah, we had about a 20-minute conversation trying to figure out what we were going to say here.
Because there's a lot of different actions we've seen in the best players throughout history.
So there's not one way that people do this. We basically boiled it down to 3.5, right? Different things we see in golf swings. So
there's probably another 20. But
there's probably a lot more, but these are our 3.5 of what we see as the most common ways that people use their trail foot.
Yep.
So I'm going to start with number 1, which I would say is probably the most common. And what that looks like is, as I start down, the trail foot stays fairly planted, and as I keep going, the trail foot goes to the ball. You see the heel come up as the player goes through. So it's kind of a banking motion,
yeah,
but it gets to the ball of the foot, so the heel's not staying down. The next most common way I probably see it would be kind of a totally banking of the trail foot with irons. You don't see this so much with woods, but with irons you see players who really bank this trail foot and kind of keep the heel down for a long time.
Now, you said 3.5. I'm assuming this banking one, the half is sort of that sliding back that we've seen a little bit throughout history.
You've got guys like Greg Norman who kind of had a little bit of a slide of their pelvis, and as they went through, their foot kind of went that way. So a little bit of a bank and slide back.
Yep.
Now, my preference is that we don't do that. That generally tells you that the pressure got off the trail foot a little bit too much. The player had a little too much lateral motion, too much slide in the motion, and the sequence was a little off. It's not my preference.
So if I showed him for the down the line, that motion, I'm starting to get a little lateral here. Hip slides, that foot banks, and then it kind of goes back. And my chest still opens up, and I get this tilt and a lot of sort of chest to the sky there.
Yeah.
Right?
Kind of a lot of reverse C type motion. So you're kind of leaned back this way with this foot going this way and the pelvis going really forward. To me, that puts a lot of pressure right here on the low back.
I mean, there's been some great players that have played from there, and I think most recently too, at Tiger when he won the Masters.
Yeah.
The 13th hole, his right foot slipped back about a foot or two. Now the ground was a little wet.
Well, I've seen video footage of pretty much every swing Tiger made during that tournament where his foot was kind of sliding. So it's a way to do it.
Yeah.
It worked for Tiger that week. Is it the best way to do it? I don't think it's optimum, personally. It's a way to do it.
One thing on that too, if you go ahead and just set up again and make that move a little bit, when I watch it on TV, it almost looks like they're taking a gut punch.
So this move here
No, when the foot goes back, where it's like, ugh, and they have to really keep their chest on top of the ball.
It's like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's an interesting move. A lot of what I see it happening, I think the face is a little too open, so the player's having to throw the brakes on some things to let other stuff catch up.
Interesting.
So it's a timing mechanism. They make it work.
All right, let's talk about the other ones here.
So we've talked about the banking with moving to the ball of the foot. We've talked about banking and staying basically the whole foot down. The third one is what some term the marching move. So it's more of like what we see Justin Thomas, J.B. Holmes, Bubba Watson doing, where their front heel's kind of up, and then as they change directions, their lead heel. So it looks like this in transition.
Interesting, yeah.
So that's another way that we see players doing, and most long drivers tend to fall into this category of where as they change directions, they get into the ball of their foot and they use the ball of their foot to push everything around. And that's what we see from like Justin Thomas and Bubba, quite a few of the really long hitters out there, because it's easier to put pressure into the ground out the ball of the foot. And so that's why they generally go to the ball of the foot.
Interesting.
So, now what's the real key between all of these is what happens in transition is no matter what we do, we don't want this right side flying out in the way. So when I'm at the top of my backswing, my belt buckle's pointing some amount down here. When I change directions, it should be pointing more down and turning and moving more down and pointing more out in front of me.
So down the line, what he's saying here is, if this is my belt buckle, I'll even take it out for you guys on camera. It's pointing more down to the ground and beginning to point a little bit left for us right-handers, a little more towards our target side, as opposed to going up and out towards the ball.
Exactly.
So you've heard the humping or the thrusting, right? So it's this that you're, I guess, referring to.
And so what allows us to be able to do that? Well, our right leg or our right foot has to actually be rotating clockwise on the ground. Even though it might not be moving, what is moving is our leg and our hip socket is moving. So it's rotating clockwise in this manner.
Well, you did a great video on this a while back. I think you had like a wooden board. I brought a clipboard. But if I get set up here, I have a little foot flare. Basically in transition, like we talked about, this belt buckle starts to go down and a little bit to the left here. And as I do that, this slides out. So this trail foot is almost like moving that way, right?
It's rotating clockwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that rotates the hips counterclockwise or opening up toward the target. So in the early part of the transition, that's one of the things that's happening is the trail foot is rotating like that, but because it doesn't actually slide, hopefully, it's gripping the ground.
Right.
That opens our body up. And then from that point on, so once we've gotten down into here, where we re-squared back up, now my preference would be to see this go to the ball of the foot and work in this way, because that's more athletic and more dynamic than say banking the foot is. It's harder to get my pelvis to keep going while I bank this foot.
Yeah.
But again, there's been players that have won a lot more golf tournaments than I've ever won who banked it. And there's been players who've won a lot more golf tournaments than I've ever won who actually slid it back. But the most dynamic players are either going to have the foot banking and getting to the ball, or the marching move where it goes to the ball really early.
I guess the one big one we would say not to do would be to get the on your toe real fast. Like, because you've heard about people being told that, hey, you need to get to your finish, right? Well, the first move isn't this.
No, we don't want to, and we definitely don't want to be squashing the bug with this type motion. So
Right.
this is definitely not what we're doing.
Right. So you've done this drill before, and you had a great video on that before. What's an exercise that our viewers can do at home to kind of feel that sensation that you're talking about?
Well, one of my favorites would be just to make their motion symmetrical. So as you turn back, go ahead and allow your lead foot, your lead heel to lift. Okay, and then as you change directions, let your trail heel lift. So plant your lead heel, lift your trail heel. Boom. And so you start to feel how to use the ground correctly.
And what I love when you do that is that belt buckle's starting to kind of go down and left, like you were mentioning.
Naturally does. Boom.
Yeah. And your heel isn't.
It's not going like this.
Not spinning out.
It's just going like this.
Yeah.
So I have.
Why don't you do that down the line just so they can see?
So, boom. And you can see my pelvis is never moving that way.
Yeah. So that's more that marching order.
That's more of the marching motion. So I like to practice that feeling. I don't actually do it except with driver. So when I go to hit something really hard, that's my natural motion. With my irons, I actually more of a bank my foot.
Interesting.
And a lot of it's probably because I was taught to keep my heel on the ground. And so I got good at it.
Yeah.
But when I want to hit it as hard as I can, I don't do it. So what's right? Well,
hey, there's many different ways, and it's just interesting to look at some of those players throughout history that have done it in their own unique ways and been successful at it. So,
yeah.
But it definitely a great feeling at home. Get that trail heel up or lead heel up. Plant the trail heel plant the lead heel while the trail heel goes up as you pressure the ball of your right foot. So
exactly. because then the pressure starts to shift correctly. It goes from heel to ball,
Yeah.
and then toward the heel of the left foot to the ball of the right. And it's just making a circle around us, because that's how pressure moves. It kind of moves in a circle.
Awesome. Well, if you like this video, make sure you hit the bell icon so you get notified when we have a new video up, and make sure you subscribe as well. Check out milolinesgolf.com for your new online academy. That's exciting. So make sure to do those things. We'll see you next time.